All right, thanks for tuning in to another edition of Prime Sports NASCAR, Prime Sports Network, as we take a look at this week's race from Phoenix Raceway with CJ Radun of RotoWire.com. CJ, good to talk to you again.
Thanks for having me again. Good to be here.
All right, so we want to get a shout out to Eric, who unfortunately was not able to hang on and do the show with us this week. We had some technical difficulties, but Eric hung in there. We're making a lot of changes to the network, to the channel, and everything else that we're doing to try to give you the best coverage as possible. And that's why sometimes we go overboard on our production limits. But Eric will be back with us again, possibly if we do a second show this week. If not, he'll join us again next Wednesday. All right, so let's kind of wrap up what happened last week, CJ, quickly, and that was the fact that your boy, Mr. Larson, got himself a win.
Yeah, I knew it would come. I was purposefully a little bit hesitant on the betting side, but definitely wanted him on my fantasy side. I think he's going to be thought he was going to be a real shot for the championship, and certainly with Hendrick and his win last week, he's showing it very early. So I'm not surprised at all that he was in victory lane. I was just waiting for him to actually break the seal before I start choosing him. And now that he has, I think he's in store for a really good run for the rest of the season.
Yeah, the other way you could look at it is that because he really wasn't a part of last year's drivers, that it's just another weird win by a driver that didn't have any success last season. That kind of thing. Like, it's still not from one of the big boys that was, it's still not a Truex, a Hamlin, a Harvick, and so on. So, I'm kind of thinking, well, I don't know. Maybe we need to give this thing another week.
No. We know now. I mean, we've had two 1.5-mile ovals. Hendrick cars have won them both. Your two or at least two of your throwaway races, a super speedway and a road course. You got your weird winners kind of out of the way. But I think at this point, we know who's fast. Denny Hamlin, Kyle Busch, Martin Truex, they're fast, but kind of where they were last year, top five. Hamlin, last year obviously had a ton of wins, but it was Harvick who was beating him really in making it to victory lane. This year, he's about the same spot. He's just getting beat by the Hendrick cars instead. So Byron looks fast. Elliott's had a few problems. He'll be in victory lane without a doubt shortly. And Larson's making the most out of everything as well. And I was just looking at the standings actually when we were trying to work through some of the problems. And there are only a handful of guys. Nobody's been in the top 10 for all four races now so far. There are only a handful of guys that have been in the top 10 for three of the four races, and there's only one guy that's been in the top five for three of those four races, and that's Denny Hamlin. So that shows that he's got consistency and he's got pace. He's going to find his way into victory lane soon. He's just got to get over Hendrick to be able to do it.
Meanwhile, about the race, it took me a little bit. Actually, it didn't take me too long, but two things happened. One, we definitely had a lot more action in the top 10. There was a lot of movement. And the restarts, this is better than what we've seen so far this year. Not that we've had a whole lot of these types of racetracks on, but whatever. But the problem was, it was the same cars. Nobody was making their way from outside the top 10. And if they did, they were like 8th, 9th, 10th. So it was just, while it was exciting seeing everybody jockey for position until Larson pretty much took over for the last hour of the race, and we've had these races before. We've seen these races before. So on one hand, it was exciting to see them. But on the other hand, in the long run, it was just, especially the way Kyle Larson dominated at the end, overall, it just didn't do it for me again.
Yeah, there was more action for sure. It was one of the more exciting races I think that we've had so far this season. But you're right. This rules package was designed to keep guys together. It was designed to not let one person get out and have a multi-lap lead. That's exactly what you saw. And the guys that are at the back of the field in this series, they're at the back of the field for a reason. You've got a handful, like 3 or 4 top teams that have the budget, that have the know-how and have the skill, and put it all together and have a fast product on the track. And they're that much better than the rest of the field. I mean, the vast majority of the top 10, barring those who started inside the top 10 that had problems or probably shouldn't have been there to begin with, were top 10 starters, and they're Joe Gibbs Racing, they're Hendrick Motorsports, they're Penske, and they're Stewart-Haas. And I think that's what we're going to get for the rest of the season. And I think you're kind of kidding yourself if you think a simple rules change is going to be able to make somebody like, I don't know, an Anthony Alfredo or whoever come up and compete every single week with Denny Hamlin. That's just kidding yourself.
No, pretty much, again, we're at a limit here of about a top, I don't know, 25, pretty much, maybe 27, 28. Yeah. That's about it.
Yeah.
And that doesn't say much for the start that Aric Almirola and Matt DiBenedetto have gotten off to, but because they're outside the top 27 behind Anthony Alfredo. So that's not good. But
I chose that for a reason.
Yeah, but everybody gets the point. What was the difference between Homestead and Las Vegas then? It's just the track?
Yeah, the track, really. I mean, it's the same rules package. It's the same distance. It's just a different configuration. I think Las Vegas is going to be more representative of what we see. The temperature and the sun difference wasn't significant. Normally, you can get a little bit more exciting race. We saw last year under these rules packages, if you've got the slippery track. When you get the cooled down track, you lose the effect of the tires, and you have more downforce that comes into play, and that's how you end up with kind of a draft pack of 10 that pull away from the rest of the field and keep everybody out. Eric and you both talked about that throughout last year. We need to get the tires to wear. We've got to have the heat. We've got to have the grease. We've got to have the wear down of the tires. We have to make tire strategy be the key versus downforce and drafting.
What do we expect then, or what do you think we'll see in Phoenix this week?
That's going to be hard, because the fall race was everybody getting out of the way at the top.
Yeah, that championship. Nobody should pay attention to that race.
So really, if you're looking at just a spring race from last year, I think you're going to have the same cast of characters, because if you look at the top 5 that finished there, you got Joey Logano, Kevin Harvick, Kyle Busch, Kyle Larson before he was out for the rest of the season, and Clint Bowyer in a Stewart-Haas. We know Stewart-Haas doesn't have the same speed that they had last year, so probably insert a couple of the Hendrick guys for Kevin Harvick and a Clint Bowyer, and I think that's the field you got. Chase Elliott's going to be up there. William Byron's going to be up there. He finished 10th in this race last year, and I would expect Alex Bowman to start doing some stuff as well, because he's had a bit of a bad patch. But Kyle Larson was 4th in this race last year in a Ganassi car. So give him, Elliott won the championship and pretty much dominated the race in the fall in a Hendrick car. Put Kyle Larson in the same one. You might have a battle between just those two at the front of the field. Maybe you've got Penske early. Penske's got to figure out how to change their cars throughout the race and keep up with the racetrack.
Do you think that we're going to see more of the type of racing that we saw at Vegas or Homestead? As far as
it'll be
what?
It'll be more like Homestead.
Okay.
Yeah, I think you'll have.
It'll be a little bit more wide open.
Yeah, it'll be more wide open. I don't think you're going to have 10 guys jockeying amongst each other all afternoon. You're going to have a couple of guys that break away. You're going to have bigger leads. Strategy should come more into play. It's just a different track. It races more like a road course than a typical 1 mile oval.
All right, well, let's go through the field first. Chase Elliott's the favorite. You are the only one to put money on Chase Elliott this week, DJ. So, yeah,
surprising.
But he's 5-1, and he did lead 246 laps in both races last year. He started first in both races, so he'll be starting 6th here. But 12th or better in 7 of 10 races at the track with 3 top 5s, a runner-up, and, of course, the championship win last year. The thing that bothered me about taking Elliott was not just the 5-1, but it was back-to-back wins at the track and doing it when he just, over the last several races, I mean, this is just not a good start for Chase Elliott. He hasn't had any luck so far this year.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because he was the favorite going into the season, I think, to repeat as well. So he had such a strong run to the end.
Still is the favorite.
Yeah, true.
The odds, he's 5-1.
That's true. It is true. He's got competition.
At least the odds say he's the favorite.
Yeah, he's got competition now. At this track in particular, though, he's, when qualifying was a thing, he's only started outside of the top 10 once, and that was his first time at the track in this series. Like you said, the 2 poles, the win. He's got a runner-up finish all the way back in the fall of 2017. So I think his luck is going to break. He's seen 2 teammates now enter victory lane. The road course race probably should have been his. Just mistakes, a spin last week. Just get over those mistakes. Once he does, I think he's going to be right up there with Byron and Larson, and probably ahead of both of them. Maybe not Larson, but probably Byron.
All right. At 6-1, Hamlin and Harvick. Nobody took Harvick this week, and that's not surprising considering he's got a low number at 6-1. He's starting 18th. Didn't look good at all last week. And even though he's been dominant at this track over his career, 18 top 5s in 36 races. So if you do your math right, that's 50% of the time he's at this track. He's in a top 5, and he's got 9 wins. But here's the issue. Not only did he not race good last week, which means he starts 18th this week, but also he's only led 67 laps in his last 4 races combined, and they all came in this race last year when he finished second. So he hasn't dominated this track over the last couple of years the way his overall career has gone.
No, he definitely hasn't. He was a lock-in bet for Phoenix a couple of years ago, probably even up into last year. But his trends just bottomed out. I mean, how long can you keep up that kind of domination? He did it for a while with four wins in a row, 5 out of 6 races in one stretch. But like you said, hasn't led a ton of laps. He's still great from a finishing perspective. I expect him to be in the top 10. But in order to win these days, you've got to come out and you've got to show that you're able to lead laps. And he hasn't done that yet this year. He's just been behind the ball. All of Stewart-Haas has been behind the ball so far. So Eric has brought up a couple of times and how much teams are developing their cars, given that next year we're switching to a new machine. I think this is one of these teams that really didn't invest too much in their cars for 2020. Or 2021. They were so good last year. Probably expected some of that to carry over, and it just hasn't so far, and they're probably caught off guard. He was nowhere to be found last week, and going into this week, I don't care if it's his best track. If you're nowhere to be found the week before on a track you should be at least in the top 5 on, you've got low expectations for this week.
And Hamlin, meanwhile, the opposite, because he has really been strong so far. He'll start 3rd. And he's got 2 wins, most recently in 2019, but not a good memory the last time he was here. He did nothing in the championship race, which was very disappointing. Matter of fact, he has not led a lap in the 2 races on this track last year. So that's not good. But he led 143 laps in the 2019 win, and he has 3 top 5s in his last 4, including the win. Not sure, again, one of those top 5s really matters, but still, unlike Harvick, Hamlin is definitely, matter of fact, even unlike Harvick and Elliott, Hamlin is off to a good start, and you would think he's a little overdue for a win. That's definitely why, or at least that's a big reason why you and Eric have put money on Denny Hamlin this week. I've avoided money on the top 3 drivers, so we'll see if that comes back to haunt me. But Eric's top play this week is on Denny Hamlin. Your top play this week was on Chase Elliott.
Yeah, Hamlin's a good bet. He's been consistently fast every single weekend, regardless of the track. Like I said, he's the only guy so far that's got 3 top 5s out of the first 4 races. He's got nearly a 40-point lead in terms of the points, and he's not been bad at Phoenix. He's kind of hit and miss at Phoenix. He's not dominated over long stretches of time like Kevin Harvick, but there are 3 races at Phoenix where he's led 140 laps or more, and the last one was as recent as the fall of 2019. So he had a couple of issues in this race last year. He finished 4th, whatever, for whatever that's worth in the fall. Didn't lead a lap, so you kind of throw that out. But he can come out and dominate, and this is a year certainly that he could do so. He absolutely should have a win at this point, given how far ahead he is in the points, and he's been the most consistent driver on every track so far, so no reason not to take him.
All right, Keselowski, this is where I finally start putting some money on a driver. Neither one of you guys touched Keselowski because, again, we know where you guys went with the drivers we just mentioned. But Keselowski is my top pick this week, and I did that before I even found out he was on the pole. So that worked out. Not that it matters, but maybe the odds will go down just a little bit. Anyway, he's never won at this track, but you look at it, he's got 2 runner-ups in his last 5 races here. He was runner-up. Actually, and then you'd also take a look at the fact that was he runner-up in that race last year? I believe so.
At Phoenix?
Yes. I believe
and the championship finale?
Yes.
Yes, he was. Led laps.
Led how much?
16.
Yeah, so that's not, but runner-up. So it was a strong runner-up. And he has, in both races, he led a combined 98 laps. But more importantly, and he's got 7 top 5s in 23 races. I just like the way he's been racing lately. He's got 2 top 5s in his last 3 races. He was runner-up last week.
Yeah, he's more consistent than Joey Logano at this. 2 top 5s out of the first 4 races. Logano's got 2 top 10s, one of them being a top 5. Second position in the championship in the fall race last year. That's good. I mean, on a day that Elliott really dominated, he got 16 laps let in. And then when you look at the spring race last year, when he led 82 and he started from 14th position, he's going to be good. He's going to be a top 5 kind of car. He has been all season. The question for me is just he's a little bit quieter than Logano. And for me, both of those guys have got to start, and even Blaney to some extent, but Logano and Keselowski in particular really have to figure out what is affecting their cars as these races go on, because they've started pretty much every single race very quick and have been very fast. They've led laps. They've been at the front. Either mistakes or problems on track have knocked them further behind, or they've missed the handling and they've missed the adjustments on the pit stops. And that's really what's happened over the last 2 weeks on the 1.5 mile ovals. So I'm a little bit concerned with both of them going into Phoenix this weekend. So, I figured Logano's having a little bit more upside. He's having a little bit more downside at the same time. Might as well lean toward Logano with a little bit of a higher upside. But honestly, between the two, Keselowski is probably the safer bet.
Yeah, Logano, at least he's won here before, and he has a nice run of the 4 straight top 10s, 278 laps combined. So, and look, I agree because you and I both put money on Logano. So it's not, I'm just not putting, matter of fact, I put all three Penske drivers on my board. And I know you just went with Logano though.
Yeah, Logano, and the reason I did was just because he's the defending winner, started 13th, led 60 laps, plus he led 125 laps in the fall race. He's led the fall in 2019 as well. He almost led 100 laps, 93. So a lot of really good production over recent races at Phoenix. I just hope that my concern really is the calls that they're making to make the adjustments on pit road throughout the races.
Meanwhile, as far as Blaney is concerned, you decided to pass, but Eric and I put money on Blaney. Blaney was, he would be my big payout this week because of his odds at 14-1. I like the starting position. It's better than where he's been all year at 8th. Love the odds at 14-1. He's been 6th or better in 3 of his last 4 races at the track. He crashed in the other race, which was last year. He led 94 laps from the pole in one of the 2019 races when he finished 3rd. And keep in mind, in 2 Xfinity Series races, he does have 1 runner-up, and he led a combined 162 laps in both Xfinity races back in 2017. So he likes the track, and he had finally a good result last week, finishing 5th.
Yeah, I think Blaney's starting to get the starting positions going in his favor. Is going to help him a lot. He's not going to have to go expend as much energy and equipment to get through the field in the early laps. Again, I just want to see him finishing it out. He's been fast here in Phoenix, like you said. He started from pole twice. He started from the 5th position in both races last year. He had that one race where he led 94 laps from pole. Those were early laps led. I'd like to see him be able to do that throughout the race distance. I did have him on my list just as I went through how much I was allocating to each of the drivers. I had to end up cutting someone. I didn't want to. I was trying to figure out a way to keep him in, but unfortunately, I just dropped him just as a result of I want to see all of the Penske guys be able to make the right calls and stay on top of the cars throughout the race.
Yeah, the odds are the best thing, really. 14 to 1.
Yeah.
Kyle Busch, the only driver, believe it or not, that all three of us took this week. The only driver, and it's Kyle Busch, who will start 7th. He's 8 to 1. He has been 11th or better in 11 straight races on this racetrack with 9 top 5s, 3 runner-ups, and 2 wins. He has an average result of 3.3 with 2 wins in his last 6 races. And keep in mind, he had to deal with the crap from last year's championship race, or else he could have been a contender for a win. Now, the only thing is, he didn't lead a lap in either race last year, so let's just say he didn't lead a lap in one of the races last year. But look, 12 top 5s and 3 wins in 31 races at Phoenix. That's 38% of the time he's been in the top 5. So, and Kyle, meanwhile, is starting also sort of like Ryan Blaney. He's starting to get better and better, and all you have to do is see it there. He's gone from 35th to 10th to 3rd in his last 3 races.
Yeah, things are getting better. He's going to start 7th this weekend. That's great. He kind of started. He's one of those guys that got caught up in the bad luck early in the season. That's impacted his ability to be able to really race at the front an entire afternoon as a result of the starting position. And exactly like we talked about with Blaney, he finished 10th in Miami. Kyle Busch did, and then 3rd last week in Las Vegas. Out of 31 career starts at Phoenix, he's got an average finish of 10.5. It's just incredible. And one of those, he led 237 laps. He's very good at this track. He's very good at a lot of tracks, and we're starting to see some traction out of him. I see that confidence building ever since that win at the end of last season. He was fast all last season, just for whatever reason wasn't able to make it into victory lane. I think that win's going to come a lot earlier for him this year, and it very well could come this week. I think he's hungry. He's been consistently in the top 5 or showing top 5 speed. If he can get out there and lead with a top 10 starting position this week, I think he's going to be in store for a very good afternoon.
All right. Meanwhile, Larson and Truex, both of you guys have money on those 2 drivers, kind of trying to get your money back, basically, but still, you went with both of them. Larson, it will start 2nd on the front row at 10 to 1. Truex will start 5th at 11 to 1. Truex has never won here, which I was a little bit surprised that both you guys went with Martin Truex in this race. He's led just 22 laps in his last 17 races on this racetrack with no wins. Larson, meanwhile, 6th or better in 6 of his last 8, runner-up in 2017, but has also led just 2 laps in his last 4 races. He led 54 laps in a 2018 race, but only 17 laps in the other 12 here combined. So I was a little bit surprised that you guys both went with these 2 drivers. You're obviously seeing something that I'm not.
So Larson, I think, is an easy pick because he's fast. He's been good at Phoenix in the past. He was 4th in this race last year, led 2 laps. He's winning with Hendrick, 4th time out, and he's been fast every single week. And Hendrick's one of the, if not the top team right now in terms of pace. Truex, yeah, I kind of wish maybe if I were to double think it, I'd probably go back and put Blaney back in and take Truex out. But the reason I didn't was that Truex has been more consistent. right now, or is more consistent right now. He's got a third and a sixth place finish coming into this week that Blaney just doesn't have. So Truex has been showing himself in the top 5, top 10 consistently every single week. Blaney's been working his way up. So Truex, I expect to be there. Which is why I didn't put a ton of money on him. I think he can win, so try to get the money back, kind of more of a head play than anything else. But if I were being a little bit more aggressive, I would probably go and switch Blaney out for Truex at this point.
Well, hey, I made a mistake too, and that is that I didn't realize that we actually have 2 drivers that we have taken this week together: Kyle Busch and William Byron. William Byron at 16-1. Now we've all basically just taken him to get our money back, but at 16, and for me, and maybe it's for you too, it's just because of the fact that winning 2 races this early in the season is kind of hard to believe for William Byron. But you can't ignore the fact that he was top 10 at both races last year, and in 2 Xfinity Series races at this track, he's finished 1st and 4th. And he's also off to a really good start with the win, and he followed that up with an 8th place finish last week.
Yeah, Byron is surprising to me. I think last year he was impressive, and maybe even the year before at the end. He really comes on at the end of the season. So he was able to navigate probably around past where I thought he should have been. But it takes skill to do that. And I think that at the start of this season, with the power that Hendrick has, he's showing that he can leverage that skill and put it to good use throughout the season rather than just when it matters at the end of the playoffs. He's got that early entry into the playoffs right now with the win in his pocket, comes back next week and gives it an 8th place run. Hendrick's looking strong. He's been pretty good at this track with 3 top 10 finishes out of 6 tries. The second worst finish outside of that was 12th, I think, where he led 15 laps, and that was his first time at the track in this series. So average finish of 13.5 out of 6 starts isn't bad. Plus, he's in Hendrick machinery. He's already won this year, 2 top 10s in a row. Momentum's on his side. Not my top choice to win, but certainly worth hedging your bets on.
Eric was the only one to put money on both 25-1 shots, Kurt Busch and Alex Bowman. Kurt Busch has only led 8 laps in his last 4 races, no top 5s in his last 8 at this track, and he only has 1 win. That was 2005. Bowman, meanwhile, he's had 1 good race, and that was back in 2000. Actually, that was in 2016. He led 194 laps from the pole, and that was it. He hasn't done anything else. And didn't even finish top 5. He's never had a top 5 in 11 races here. He only has 1 top 10 in 6 races in the Xfinity Series. And he's kind of off to a slow start. It looked like his team was putting him in really good positions last week on pit road, and then he just kept going backwards. And really, it just looks like, I don't know if he's made mistakes, but something's happened with the car in 2 of his last 3 races when it looked like he was in position to go forward, and instead he went backwards in a real serious way.
Yeah, it's interesting because Byron's got the new crew chief, and he's off to a rip-roaring success. Those guys communicate really well, and they've gotten success out of it as well. We heard all offseason that the only thing changing with Bowman's car is the number. Everything else is staying the same. So you would have thought the consistency would have played into his hands. And who would have thought that, going into the season, you would have thought that Bowman and Elliott would have been the 2 Hendrick drivers to have won races so far. If you would have told me that Hendrick won 2 of the first 4 races with different drivers, I would have said it's Elliott and Bowman. Neither one of them has done it. So something is off with Bowman. I'm not sure if it's complacency. I'm not sure what the difference is year over year. But you're right. He's been in position. It's not like there's anything obvious that's going on. I think it's another case similar to Penske, where they're just not getting the right call at the right time to be able to stay on top of things and keep that car at the front. Or even put it to the front. But then when you couple that with his record at Phoenix, where he really did have that one anomaly race, he's done nothing at the track other than that. It's really difficult to choose him, especially given the slump that he's in. Kurt Busch, I would go with over Bowman. at this point, because I think Busch is kind of up and down here at Vegas. I think he's got a little bit more upside potential. He's got the win here in the past. He was sixth in this race last spring. Seems to do a little this spring. Did I say something?
Yeah, you said Las Vegas.
Did I say the wrong track? Did I say? Sorry. Yeah. Sorry. I was thinking of his hometown, Las Vegas. Yeah. We are at Phoenix. But yeah, sixth place in this race. Last year better in the spring races. Led 52 laps before crashing in the fall race of 2018 too. So that should have been another kind of top 10 for him. Average finish of 13.6 from 36 career starts. That is not bad at all. So certainly with the momentum, he's a little bit more consistent. Hasn't shown the speed of the Hendrick cars, but definitely been consistent. And as you know, that's what it takes to win in this series.
Looks like you got a really good driver on your fantasy team by the name of Christopher Bell. He is 28-1. He's going to start fourth. He didn't show anything on this track last year, but he does have 3 top 5s and a win in 5 Xfinity Series races while leading a combined 259 laps. And he just, again, forget Daytona, but and then he wins the road course. But it just seems that over the last several races, he's just always there. He's been in the top 10, in the top 5 every race so far.
Yeah.
And we both have him this week, by the way.
Yeah. He's part of the reason why I think Joe Gibbs, I would put them up there with with Hendrick right now. I mean, you would expect Hamlin, you would expect Truex, you would expect Kyle Busch to be up there. But with Christopher Bell being able to be in those positions each and every week, that shows you that Joe Gibbs has got something going on for sure, more so than they had last year with just Hamlin, who was pretty much the only one that was able to succeed last year. It's going to be interesting to see what he does at this track. It'll be his first time with Joe Gibbs proper, so it's a little bit hard to predict given his Cup Series results. But like you said, from an Xfinity standpoint, not bad at all. Not bad at all in any of the races so far this year. Definitely one that's I would expect without question to be racing in the top 10 throughout the afternoon. And who knows, if things fall his way, you get a late restart or whatever, he's going to be in contention to win. And it seems like it's going to be every single week at this point.
The other long shots Eric took, he put a couple of bucks on Reddick at 66-1, Wallace at 80-1, Newman at 100-1, and a buck on Chastain at 150-1. The only other long shot driver I took was Eric Jones. I put $4 on him at 100-1. And what's also, and remember I said before, Aric Almirola is not off to a good start. He's got 5 top 10s in his last 7 races at this racetrack, but he starts 32nd. That's because he's just not things are just not working out for Almirola. He's 40-1. If he doesn't have a top 10 or a top 15, maybe even this week, then they're in trouble.
Yeah, and like I said, he's part of the Stewart-Haas problem. I'm not saying he's part of the problem. I'm just saying he's in Stewart-Haas, and Stewart-Haas is having a problem. And when Kevin Harvick goes to Las Vegas and he's nowhere to be found the entire afternoon, you can't expect anybody else in the team really to come up and be there. So something is off with Stewart-Haas. I think Almirola, with the oddness that we saw in the first couple races, got a boost from that. So he probably had a false start in terms of what we would expect from him. You're right. If we don't see something this week, like a top 10 kind of car out of him throughout the afternoon, I'm concerned for the entire organization for the rest of the year. Obviously something's going to have to, we're going to have to see something from Harvick as well. For Eric, he's always been high on Reddick this year. I think Reddick is good. I just don't know that I need to see something. I need to see a little bit more consistently. He was good in 1 or 2 races so far. Again, those kind of toss-up races, and he's definitely speed. He's there, but for me, he's got to start showing it a little bit more frequently, a little bit more consistently. And I think out of the 3 of us, I've been the one that's been most down on Wallace's expectations for this year. I think they'll get it together. I think Wallace has got the talent. I think the resources are there to get the team to be there. How long it's going to take. It's clear with their results and what they're doing on track that they're a step behind. It's going to take time for them to gel. They're going to have to get to know each other. They're going to have to develop. They're going to have to develop the playbook and how to work with one another. Once they do, I'm in. But I think it's going to take time. It's still very early for that. And then after last week, for the Roush Fenway cars, Ryan Newman, Chris Buescher. I think the speed that we saw at Homestead was a little bit of a mirage because again they weren't demonstrating it last week at Las Vegas. So Newman's not done a whole heck of a lot here recently at. Definitely not since joining Roush, I should say, at Phoenix. He does have the win or 2 wins here, 12 top 10s out of 36 starts, average finish of 16.9. So I think what we saw in Homestead was a little bit of a head fake. But the one guy that you did mention, Eric Jones, I think he's punching above his weight with Richard Petty. I think he's brought a lot to the team. I think he's boosting them up. I think
well, this is
certainly
a big race for him because he comes in 10th after last week. He'll start 14th, which is okay. He has been pretty much a monster on this track. He's got 4 top 10s and 1 top 5 in 9 cup races. But in the Xfinity Series, 7 top 10s in 7 Xfinity races with 5 top 5s and a runner-up. So I would expect that if they continue to be on this rise, that he'll have another top 10 this week. He would be a really good fantasy driver this week.
Completely agree. He's definitely going to be in my fantasy lineup this week. He's been outperforming the expectations of what we've grown accustomed to seeing with Richard Petty Motorsports. So he's got the talent. We know that. For whatever reason, he just didn't live up to the expectations of Gibbs. Whatever didn't work there. I think we're seeing him being able to lift this organization here. And Phoenix is definitely a place with his top 10s in his history at the track that he can lift them up and punch above their weight. Is he going to come out and win? No, probably not. But certainly, as you pointed out from a fantasy perspective, he's definitely somebody you should have in your lineup this week.
Yeah. And out of the drivers that I think, did Eric put him in there too? Actually, he didn't. Actually, out of some of those drivers, Custer would have been one I probably would have put.
I considered.
Yeah, because he was 9th in one of the races last year, and he's got 5 top 10s and 6 Xfinity races with 2 top 5s and a runner-up.
Yep. I did consider him. Again, probably more of a fantasy play than anything. He was 9th in this race last year, started 16th. So, again, I just wonder how much of the Stewart-Haas organization are holding them all back at this point.
Hey, I mean, we talked about this in the beginning, preseason, that this is what was going when Kevin Harvick is sitting there kind of all by himself. And this is how would it affect either him or maybe the whole team? And it looks like it's affecting the whole team. Like, there has to be, it's like Aric Almirola is one of the veterans, and you can't rely on Aric Almirola as a veteran. He's not somebody you look up to. And then you got 2 young drivers. It's just, it's a very strange mix. I'm not sure why Stewart-Haas did this.
Yeah, and it's interesting. I mean, we're talking about Kevin Harvick not having a great season 4 races in, and he's got 3 top 10s.
Oh, yeah, he'll be fine. I think he'll be fine.
He will be. Absolutely. Yeah. But he's not the Kevin Harvick that we saw last year that comes out and dominates and the sure play every single week. He's just not. And so something is off. And I think you hit the nail on the head. I think the difference in the support that he's got around him on the other team cars, I think that very well could be. And I bet you, I still think they put more eggs in their basket for next year versus development on a car for this year. I think for at least Harvick, they were probably a little bit complacent with the number of wins that he got last year and the speed that he showed throughout the season. Probably, we can do a little bit less, focus a little bit more on 2022, and that's hurting them, I think, in 2021.
But Almirola, I mean, he's not going to be able to return if he doesn't do well. Is his contract up?
I think this is his last year on the contract, if I'm not mistaken.
And if that's I mean, look, sponsorship is sponsorship. You never know. But come on. I mean, that's something that you could easily see a major change there if he doesn't start. He's got to win a race. He's got to get to the playoffs, really. And the way things are now, it looks like if you don't win a race, you're not going to be in the playoffs. It's very possible the way the season started. So if that doesn't happen, I think they need to find another driver, and they probably should go with a veteran because they've already got a couple of young drivers. They don't need a third.
How about an Eric Jones?
There you go. We'll see how. And look, this is a big race for Eric and the team and Petty because with his history at this track, if he does not perform well, then it's up. Here we go again. It's just another petty driver. It's just, but if they have another top 10, another top 5, then it's hey, couple back to backs. Maybe we got something going on here.
Yeah, I don't think we're going to see another petty driver after this week. I think Eric Jones has got it all going for him. He's punching above his weight, as I said, probably 5 times by now. He's definitely outperforming their average, and Phoenix is a spot that he's going to do it again. I don't think there's any doubt about that. The question really is how much is Harvick really off with Stewart Haas, and then how much is Almirola going to be able to claw back once they do figure out what's wrong with their competitiveness on the track.
The schedule next week, it's Atlanta, and that's 2 races back to Atlanta this year, and then it's Bristol's dirt race. So
and then a week, yeah,
and then a week off. Everybody will need a week off after that, probably.
Going to be interesting. Love Atlanta. It's very fast. The really old pavement really plays into our hands in terms of one tire wear. You get a great race. So I'm excited to go back to Atlanta. The dirt's going to be another throwaway race, and then we've got a week to assess before we come back and look at Martinsville, first short track of the year. Well, I guess Bristol's technically a short track, but with dirt on it.
Yeah, I just think that's nobody knows what's going to go on there. We'll have a couple of weeks to talk about that craziness. So your report, when it will be out this week at RotoWire?
We will have fantasy reports up for the races this weekend at Phoenix on rotowire.com. And then either late Sunday night or early Monday, we will have the NASCAR barometer recapping the race on Sunday from Phoenix on rotowire.com.
CJ, appreciate it. We'll talk to you again next Wednesday.
Sounds great. Thanks for having me.